Welcome back to Sneaker Impact News. Today, my special guest is Andy Polk. Andy is the Senior Vice President at the FDRA and a one-man think tank helping shape the future of the footwear industry. He drives industry-wide innovation, sustainability, and strategy, helping shoe companies navigate change and stay ahead. Andy also leads FDRA's marketing team, covering communications, reporting, and 30-plus annual events, all while launching new initiatives that keep the industry moving forward. A former foreign policy advisor on Capitol Hill, Andy holds a master's in international relations from the London School of Economics and a BA in business administration and political science from Gardner-Webb University. He's the founder of the Footwear Innovation Foundation and co-host of the footwear industry's weekly Shoe and Show podcast, now 500 episodes strong. Andy, welcome to the Sneaker Impact News podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining from Western Virginia, which is just outside Washington, D.C. And for folks who may not be familiar, Reston is home to where Amazon Web Services headquarters are, Google Cloud, Microsoft Cloud. So all the cloud computing that kind of took off during COVID is based here in Reston, which makes for a very interesting interaction with other professionals where I talk to people about what they do, and it's a lot of coding and software and executives, and they ask what I do, and I say footwear, and people always get very confused. So it's kind of fun for me in some ways to interact with certain people in the area here.
Well, we're all about footwear at Sneaker Impact, as you know, sustainability and giving shoes a second life in sneakers. So tell us, what is the FDRA?
Yeah, so FDRA is the Footwear Distributors and Retailers of America. It's a long one, but FDRA. It's we've been in existence for about 80 years. We're the Footwear Industries Business and Trade Association, which basically means we do several things on behalf of the industry. Um, we're governed by the industry itself, so we were established by footwear companies, and our board are footwear CEOs and executives for retailers, brands, etc. Here in the U.S., we're about 98% of all footwear companies are members by retail sales. So whether they're a brand or retailer, um, one of our main functions is lobbying on behalf of the industry, which is why I'm just outside Washington, D.C. I lived in D.C. for about 20 years. And as you said earlier, I worked on Capitol Hill. And our team, part of our core team, myself, Matt Priest, our CEO, and Thomas Crockett, who's our VP of Government Affairs, have background in government. And so we lobby on behalf of the industry, especially important these days with tariffs increasing, which is a direct cost to footwear companies. So that impacts jobs, it impacts product, quality, and it impacts kind of our innovation, our industry innovation. Can we make better shoes that are lighter, have more energy return, etc.? So when you have tariffs added to that, it makes it really hard to innovate because you're trying to squeeze as much as you can out of what you have.
Yeah.
So we lobby, and then we do a number of events, and we send out a lot of newsletters and industry intelligence. So we track retail prices. We look at inventory that's coming into the U.S., where it may be coming from. So we think about sneakers. When I first started doing this job, China was the largest sneaker manufacturing location in the world for the U.S. market. It's now Vietnam, so it's shifted.
Mm.
And so we look at where sneakers are made, or where dress shoes are made, where kids shoes are made, so we can segment those things out and kind of have a better understanding of our industry and where people may be shifting, what the costs may be, how to optimize what we're doing, so that we can make better shoes, ship them faster, get them to consumers more efficiently. So a lot of what we do is really just trying to strengthen the industry around decision making, like giving them better data and then helping them analyze where things are shifting in order to make better business decisions. So that's kind of a lot of what we do at FDRA, kind of at a base level, and then within that, there are a lot of just buckets that we do because the industry relies on us to build programs for support. So we work on random things that people don't think about, but like chemical management. So when you think about running shoes, I think it's something like if you go high end, there you go. If you're wearing Hokas like that, they could have 120 different materials and components that go into that shoe. The average shoe has about 60. And so when you're talking about that
Wow,
many
that's a lot. I
materials
didn't
and
think it was that many. I thought it might be 10.
ton, it's a ton. And then you got to think about glues and adhesives because you want to make sure that the shoe
Mm,
maintains its integrity, as we like to say. You know, the midsole doesn't compress too much, but you get a lot of good performance for longer miles. So
yep.
all that's determining, you know, when they design footwear in particular, like that's the determining factor is like what are we asking this shoe to perform in the foot, right?
Mm,
So
the
you're a
testing of
marathon
it.
runner, so yeah, so
I've seen those
so
tests where they do the, how many
yeah,
they make it the
yeah.
shoe
So there's a lot of just things that go
impact.
into that, and so we work a lot on materials. We work on sustainability. We work on
Wow.
chemical compliance. So
So you
anything
guys
and everything
cover
that's gonna
everything for the footwear industry, it sounds like.
yeah, it is a lot. And
One stop shop.
I'd never say we're experts on anything, but we're specialists, and I think we try really hard to be um, very good interlockers or in some way like a filter, right? We know who the experts are. So if a company is like, I'm experiencing this problem or we have these issues in our supply chain, we kind of have seen it before or know who to point them to or assist them. Um, so in some ways we're like a general practitioner doctor, right? Like we know all the ailments of the normal stuff. If there's some specialty problem you have, we have referrals. We can do that
Hmm.
too. We'll still take the copay,
Sure.
but we can refer people here and there. And so that's kind,
Yeah, you're
and
connectors, but you're also you're at the pulse of the industry, and you're in Washington D.C. The lobbying is so important in the sense that there's a lot of support needed for this to be economically viable. How does
yes.
sustainability build into this?
Well, it's one of those things where I would say there's some companies that have been working on sustainability and believe in sustainability, as their core ethos. So I think it's someone like Keen,
Hmm.
which builds product and is very thoughtful in their customer
Mm-hmm.
base. They're like outdoor enthusiasts. So
Mm-hmm.
there's some of that tied into that. But like there's companies who have been doing this for decades who are
Mm-hmm.
tied into that. But sustainability for the entire industry, I would say probably like 7 or 8 years ago, we started having discussions as an industry and what is sustainability. And I'm not sure we really have a good definition yet. But we've kind
Renewable
of
I mean, we love the circularity. That's what we're working on.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But we kind of pulled people together and we got everybody into a room and we said, all right, like, how do we talk to each other about this?
Mm-hmm.
What are we most concerned about? And a lot of it started with packaging. And
Sure.
so if you think about it
Yeah,
from a
yeah.
sustainability
The
standpoint, you've
boxes
got
and all the stuff inside the shoe box.
listen, anybody who's got an Amazon package where they ordered a pack of batteries and it comes in a box built, big enough for an elephant knows there's just waste there. It's
Yeah.
just stupid, right? So how do we address what like low hanging fruit? So start with
Mm-hmm.
packaging of sneakers and things like
Absolutely.
that, like better optimize it. And then it went into the product itself. Like what kind of materials are we choosing? How are we constructing these shoes? How in our factories, like how are they working and making sure that when they're making the product, they're doing it really efficiently without releasing a lot of carbon in the
Mm,
air or wasting water. Because
sure.
that's one thing for footwear too is we
Yeah.
use a lot of water when we're making midsoles and
Mm-hmm.
developing products. So how do we use resources appropriately but not abuse them? And so that's kind of where we started to build different programs. And around within that then started to become like over the last like 3 or 4 years, this circularity out of
Mm.
that, right? So
Of
I think
materials.
circularity is kind of the holy grail of trying to
That's the
figure
holy
out
grail.
like
Yeah.
that's the holy grail of trying to figure out like, all right, like how we make a shoe really determines how we disassemble a shoe and what we do with it at the end of life. And so that conversation's been echoing a lot now in our industry the last several years of saying, okay, well, we need to figure out like how we thoughtfully redesign what we're doing. And then towards the end of life, right? So it starts at the design stage in many ways. And then, like, I think what we've been seeing and what you guys are doing, and, Mo, credit to Mo for like leaning into this, is like there needs to be both sides. We need to design better, and then we need the infrastructure at the end of life. And it's kind of moving towards the middle now on both ends.
I love it.
So
Yep. And I remember at TRE the last few years meeting some of the biggest brands in the running industry for shoes and footwear. And they're all talking now about how in the design process, they're designing the shoe so that when it's at end of life, they can either take back and help to repurpose the shoe.
Right.
Well, I'll grind it down. But what they said was that one company in particular, that they hit it with some type of like microwave, energy, and it loosens up the glues, and then
Right.
most of the pieces come apart into like segmented, pieces that are like easy to then, versus having 12 or, 3 to 4 different types of foam. I don't know if you can tell us how many exactly foams. I think there 3 or 4, but then there's the rubber, there's the textile, but,
That's
ways
right.
that can design it so it breaks down quicker and they can,
Yeah,
get
that's right. The foam's been the
decon-
biggest challenge.
deconstruct it
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah, exactly. And I've
Yeah.
been in labs where they do that. They
Hmm.
have been testing out different ways to microwave to get the glue to be able to pull it off. It's
Hmm.
still very manual in some ways,
Mm,
but I'll say this, like, over the past year or so, I've seen a lot of technological advances where we were
sure.
hopeful that that would happen, but I think the technology is going to keep getting better
And
and
the
better.
3D printing, I mean, look at what like some of these companies now are doing with
Yeah,
3D
that it's
printing.
a good point because there is this discussion around like how many materials do we need in shoes, right?
Mm,
And it's a larger engineering question as
hmm.
to what you want the footwear to do. But if you're running, if you're doing a
Yep.
lot of running, then you need a lot of foam and
Yep.
you need a heavy construction. But we can use better glues and adhesives that can more easily disassemble. Like, we shouldn't have to microwave a pair of shoes to pull them apart, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of work being done around that. So it's kind of sustainability and innovation are kind of hand in hand at this point. It's looking at not just how we make shoes with better energy return, or can last longer or more durable, but
Hmm.
like, what are those materials and how is that? How do we measure the impact on the earth that we're doing
You're
at the
right.
same
It's
time?
such a complicated calculation and hard to please everyone or make everyone happy because I'm a runner. We were talking about the Chicago Marathon, which I
Yep.
ran 3/4 of 2 days ago. We're not going to keep it at that
Yeah,
only.
look, that's
I made it about 19 miles, guys. But I love energy return. I love comfort. I've had 2 Achilles surgeries. I'm, in my late 40s. I'm run a lot of marathons in my life, so I love that foam. But I'm also an environmentalist. I would love a shoe that just completely decomposed and broke down to the
yeah,
earth. But that's not where we're at. And there are shoes, sure, that some companies are making, not in large production, but they're using materials that are either recovered plastics. And you can actually use that now in the new shoes that we're talking about, the high performance shoes by some of the top companies in the world, recovered plastics, recovered foam from the sea, which I think is beautiful, um, and important work. But there's not yet a performance running shoe that is, in my eyes, environmentally friendly in the truest sense. And I have to be honest with myself. Here
yeah,
I am. I eat as healthy as I can, and I want to take care of the planet because there's no planet B, and we are the stewards of the planet. And it's a whole ecosystem, the Earth. It's living. We don't own it. It's our home, and we need to take care of it.
yep.
How do we? It's just an evolution, right? It's not like an
It
easy.
is. I mean, you do what there's the whole saying where it's like, where do you start? And it's like you start where you're at and
Yeah.
with what you have before you, right? And so we can't boil the ocean in some ways of trying to get to a fully biodegradable circular shoe,
Hmm.
because ultimately, if if we try to do that now, where a performance running shoe, and you started running in that and you realize it was not comparable. It didn't have the comfort, didn't have the return. It fell apart. You got
Didn't last
injured.
more than 200 miles. Yeah.
Then you would never buy another
No.
sustainable shoe, right? So it's got to be it is a hard needle to thread, but it's got to be meet all the expectation of the consumer and be better for the environment at the same time. And so it's a
Mm.
really difficult kind of thing. I kind of compare it to like a DJ who's turning up the treble and the bass and like where, the equalizer, right?
Yep.
Like, there's all these things are having to, in the engineering department, figure out
Mm.
in terms of material science. So I think where you start with is making sure that you make shoes that last longer.
Hmm.
So I think, if you can get an extra 100 miles out of a pair of shoes, I think, and keep it out of landfill,
That's
like
true.
that's great. I think donating, like Sneaker Impact, like,
Yeah.
when as a consumer you think this shoe is at the end of its life, someone else in another country or a different socioeconomic environment actually still thinks those shoes are really valuable. So how do we keep those in circulation and keep them going until they are actually at the end of the life, the end of the actual useful, valuable life of that product before we think about grinding and doing things like that. So,
Definitely. And then
so I think that's
grinding
where we
and post
start,
consumer use is, I think, part of the solution, until we have materials that will offer the, as we talked about, the
right?
benefits that
And
would,
I think we're getting there. I mean, you got some samples here that you can look at where people
yeah,
are doing midsoles, are doing insoles. You're starting to see some ability to do a grind and then put it back into something.
yeah.
And for a long time, I think Nike's done this with Nike Grind, but they did a lot of playgrounds.
Mm. Hmm.
They're one of the largest, and I don't know if it's still the case, but um, they would sell the carpet backing at Home Depot,
Oh,
and
wow.
Nike was the number one seller of carpet backing. So it's the padding underneath
Yeah,
the
yeah, that
carpet.
makes sense. I never knew that
So
they did that though, and
yeah,
I thought that they
so
were using not Nike particular, but I thought that the industry was using for some form of padding, but that really makes sense for the back of
Yep.
carpet.
So there's been that.
Yeah.
I think for our industry, it's difficult because most of our manufacturing is still done overseas
Hmm.
for a
Okay.
number of reasons. But about 99% of all shoes sold in the U.S. are made overseas,
How much?
and
99?
99%.
Wow.
So you've got 1% that still makes here. In terms of sneakers, there's still some manufacturing that's done here, but for the most part, and it's a number of considerations. It's cost, it's quality, and it's just kind of lack of skill set here in the U.S. and infrastructure. We've got to
Okay.
rebuild that, and so we work on that as well. I work with domestic manufacturers a lot on
Hmm.
scalability and issues and things like that. But the challenge for the industry really is, okay, if we have built this infrastructure where we can grind these, like we've been working a lot to sell that to other industries to use. And ultimately, if we really want circularity, we have to build capacity in the US to take
That's so
that
true.
ground up product and
Yep.
put it back into shoes. So that's kind of the next step in evolution is as I see, the designers and the engineers are getting better and the infrastructure and technology is getting better. At some point when those things come together, we need something else, and that is going to be more factories in the US that can take these materials and turn it into footwear products, right? We
Yeah.
we want to be that's kind of legitimate full circularity in some
Sure.
ways where it's like, a closed loop system. There's also some technologies happening where I see some companies making biodegradable shoes are more casual, but there's still some
Like the
biodegradable
algaes.
materials.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
And the
So we have that.
cactus and the
Yeah,
banana and
exactly.
the
And then we have some companies that are making like TPUs. You mentioned 3D, but you have TPU that you can melt down and put back in.
and TPU
Now,
is that that's not the nitrogen infused foam. Like tell people what TPU you can tell.
it's just it's thermoplastic kind of foam, and so
Hmm.
there's EVA, there's PU, there's TPU. Like there's a
And
variety of
now the
different
big thing is
forms.
nitrogen, isn't it? And like Puma and like Nike and Adidas, aren't they all putting like nitrogen?
Yeah, there's talk of that. How much that actually improves the shoe versus what the marketing story is, I
Hmm.
don't really
Okay.
know. To be
And
honest,
the plates, obviously the
the
carbon
plates
fiber.
the carbon plates are legitimate. I
Yeah.
think those are like really people are leaning into
Oh
that
yeah.
more and
I've worn
more.
them and they work. You just have to be careful with them because you can get injured if you don't use them
Right.
wisely.
So I think so yeah, there's a lot of material sciences happening. There's a lot of there's a lot of challenges that remain. And so when I talk to companies and they're saying, benchmark where we're at in this journey that we all have as an industry, we try to set some standards to help people make better choices. We call it our environmentally preferred material guide. So we're saying, if you have a leather, um, can you choose it from a tannery that uses less chemicals?
Mm.
If you're using cotton,
Hmm.
can you use recycled cotton? If you're using polyester, can you do 20% recycled poly? So
Hmm.
it's like these different movements around biomaterials and recycled
And
materials that try to
there's a leather I think made out of mushroom mycelium.
yes, there
And
is
like and the
there's
cars are using it nowadays sometimes for the seats
yep
and people are who are very conscious are trying to, but yeah, it's still not scalable, and so and I I got a degree, in botany and mycology, so I'm
Yep.
passionate about, botanical resources. But that's so cool that you're at the heartbeat of the industry there, and you're the newsletters you're sending out in the intelligence. It sounds like you're one of the people that understands this really big, like the footwear industry is so big that I don't think people even understand how big it is. All right.
Yeah, I think, and
Everyone
I'm
wears
trying to,
shoes and it's one of the
it's like
biggest things in the world.
we import in about 2.5 billion pairs of shoes every year.
2.5 billion. Wow.
Yeah, so that's like seven. It's around 6 or 7 pairs per every man, woman, and child in the United States. It's a
Wow.
lot of shoes. No one comes close. I think Europe may be 2.5 or 3 pairs per
Okay.
every man, woman, and child. And Europe on their side, that's the next largest thing.
Okay.
So we're a
I'm going to
huge
put that
consumer.
2.5 billion in my head because I talk to people a lot about only 13% get recycled and about
Yep.
500 million in the US are thrown into landfills every year. But we think that's a very small underestimate. But
Yeah, it's
500
hard to say.
million
It's
out
hard to
of
say.
2.5.
Yeah, and we've also tried to get at a number. It's like how much is being
You're
thrown
never going to
away.
know exactly. I tell people that all the time. We just have
It's
to,
because of closet space, right?
you
So you
don't
got
need to
people
know
who,
exactly either. It's just we have
yeah,
to understand there's a problem there and it's a big problem. Only 13% are recycled,
yep,
but 90+% of people want to recycle. We need to make it
right,
easy. We need
yep.
to teach them. We need to have municipalities getting involved. So that's what, I know Mo is, we're really pushing that down here in Florida. Um, but
Well, it's
yeah.
definitely moving in that direction where there can be like centralized kind of recycling, and I think that's what's going to take is
Mm-hmm.
um, we. I would say 5 years ago we had conversations with retailers about trying to set up take back programs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of people balked at the time because they were like, I don't want to create a reverse supply chain. I don't want to deal with it. But then slowly but surely over the last, 3, 4, 5 years or so, that narrative has shifted. And I think a lot of retailers have
Yep.
take back programs,
Because
right?
their customers care about, right, social
Right. They'll have a
responsibility. And
sneaker impact box in the
yep.
store, or,
Yeah, they don't
someone.
have to do it by themselves. They got
That's
support.
right. So there's these systems now that we didn't have. So I think there's good progress is taking place,
Yeah.
but we need more incentive.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
We need more centralization,
Yep.
and that's the kind of the problem is recycling is a cost
Yep.
to companies.
You're right.
So in order to mitigate the cost or make it more affordable, or however you want to talk about it in like business parlance, we just need more help in
Mm-hmm.
some ways, and we need more centralization, and we need a more educated consumer at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's all
That's so
moving in the
true.
right.
The education is key. People don't even understand the problem until they get it in front of them. We were recently on the CBS Evening News, and hopefully that got in front of 6 million people or so that night.
Yeah,
And, I didn't understand the problem until I started working for Sneaker Impact about 3 years ago as one of their educators. And, and I'm also the manager of our retail running store network of 500 running
yeah,
stores. So, but basically, I didn't understand the problem, and I was a scientist and I
yeah.
also was a runner for 20 years. I didn't understand the problem at all. I didn't even think about where my shoes went. 90% of people don't think or about what
Well,
happened.
I think if you think of your common life, it's not something that is
Yeah,
front and
you're
center.
just
I
trying to
think it's
pay the
easier to think
bills. You're
about
trying to
like
get.
I think when we think about environmentalism, we think a lot more about like oil fields and
You're right.
fracking and energy issues. Yeah, those are the biggest kind of purveyors
Correct.
of environmental issues and
Yeah.
things like that. But footwear, again, like we just said, like where can we start? We talked about as an industry, but as a person, as a human, we have these things in our house. So what do we do with them?
Hmm.
And it behooves us to make
Yeah, like the
equal
washing
good
machine and the
choices.
dryer. We figure out how to
Right.
recycle those.
Right. So I think, and I'll say too, like the biggest kind of shift I've seen in the last 3 years are things like Apple and Microsoft and Google now taking back all the phones,
Mm-hmm.
but there's an incentive for them to take it back because copper prices are
Oh yeah,
up,
the rare earth
earth
metals.
minerals are up, things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
they're taking it back, and that's an environmental good for all of us. But they're also doing it because they're making money off doing that. And so my hope is at some point we can level set the cost of recycling and circularity against the benefits, the economic benefits of doing it, and creating new brands or like creating new revenue streams. And we're seeing a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Like the resale market to me is pretty fantastic, where somebody can say, I'm not just going to take these to Goodwill. Maybe I can make $20 off these and like
Hmm.
sell it online.
Yeah, then you're an entrepreneur.
Right. So I think there's a growing option of where we can keep shoes in circulation longer versus just
Hmm.
chucking them in the garbage.
Yep.
Um, but it's up to us to make those determinations and say, okay, like how do I, you know, what do I do with these shoes at the end of the line? You got to ask the question,
Yeah, that's
and
true.
I think for a long time people just haven't been asking the question.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
but
no, we're
hopefully,
getting out there at a lot of marathon expos. We were at the Chicago Marathon. We were an official partner of the Bank of America Chicago Marathon at their expo. They had a
that's
zero
awesome.
waste part of the expo, Andy. It was huge. I mean, we're talking over, I believe, 2 million people passed through this expo.
That's
One
amazing.
1.8 million spectators on race day about in the city of Chicago. I mean, it's their biggest weekend of the year, I believe. And beautiful weather in early October, and the hotels are crazy. I mean, geez, it's like you can't even 55,000 runners. And so I'm at the expo with Sneaker Impact, and we're right by the Culligan water station. They had this zero waste village. They had a big tent that said zero waste on it in green, and then it's had the recycling symbol and a couple other symbols. And I thought that was really cool because it caught people's attention from afar. And then they
Mhm.
had them like write their sustainability pledge on a piece of paper and tack it up on a bulletin board that was like super environmentally, like everything was done with recycled materials. They had
Right,
a
right,
little
right.
the tree there that was made out of cardboard right behind me. It was like a 10-foot tall cardboard tree, which is kind of cool. Again, just like inside this giant expo where everything's about buying shoes, buy clothing, buy this, buy your
Right.
gels, buy this fancy little thing you put on your arm to carry your phone. And here we're talking about zero waste. And then we
Mhm.
had the Sneaker Impact clear box made out of polycarbonate, and you could see the shoes people were bringing and dropping in. We filled up many boxes, and we talked to them about what happens to the shoes and how they can order a bag online to get shipped to them, which is our take back program. We
Yeah.
will ship our bag to everyone. So we did that, and I thought that it was our second year working with Chicago, and every year it's getting bigger, and we're going to potentially be at the New York City. Actually, we are at the New York City Marathon. We're at the they have another sustainability section as well, and that's coming up in 3 weeks. LA, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and those are our big. We go to a couple others in the military, the Air Force, Space
Yeah,
Force,
yeah. Yep.
and Flying Pig in Cincinnati, and your parts. Um, yeah, so we're just going to marathons around the country and educating, and that's actually helping to build the message because people are wearing our shirts and runners are getting it. So runners are like really a big part of our movement. But we're not just runners; we're also gyms and
Sure.
universities
Don't be
and
afraid. I think you gotta do it face to face,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I think
that's it. You can try your hardest and you get a little bit out on social media, but you got to go. So that's why when I saw you do 30 plus events a year, I do a lot of events too, and it's so important to get out there in the community and just keep having the conversations. It can get, a little bit exhausting sometimes, but it actually, just as much as people want to learn or listen to their perspective and learn from them too, and what they're doing, oftentimes they're getting the message and bringing in big bags of shoes to the expo. We've had it
yep.
happen at Flying Pig. People are bringing 20 plus shoes. It was insane cleaning out their garages. So we love that. And we get great videos, but, I wanted to circle back to how did you get to know us? I mean, we didn't tell people how, you connected with us. So can you tell that story?
I think, I'm trying to remember, it's been years now, but Mo and I just connected on a phone call where we were chatting, and I think part of it was around the sustainability stuff. It's like we were trying to map out who was doing what, right? So part of it was infrastructure around who's grinding things, what is there, but also like who are doing like meaningful, purpose driven missions, right? And so um, you guys came up, Souls for Souls came up, some other folks came up, and so Mo and I got on a call and kind of chatted and just going back and forth about who we knew and how long he was in the industry. It's like one of those it's like a typical footwear conversation. It's like a who's who kind of thing. And so the great thing about footwear is if you're not in the industry, it's very community driven. Everybody knows everybody. For as big as footwear is, it's very small in terms of decision makers and
Yep.
people who do things.
Yep.
So Mo and I just kind of hit it off, and we'll connect every now and again about what's happening, and we've been connecting more and more around the things that Sneaker Impact have been doing around the recycling infrastructure and the machines and the
Mm.
technology you
Hmm.
guys have. Trying to figure out where that is and where it's heading, and we had Mo come out and speak at our summit this year in Portland at our Sustainability and Innovation Summit around that. And so it was good to get like just some face-to-face time with it. What was funny though is he was
I heard you sang there too.
I did sing. So at events I try very hard to keep it upbeat. So, some of these topics are really for people trying to struggle with this stuff can be like really heady and like kind of
Mm-hmm.
deep, and you can get a little melancholy because you might not
Yeah.
be making as much progress as you
You
want, and
see
so
footwear floating
yeah,
in the
so I try
ocean,
to
and
keep it,
yeah,
yeah,
ending up.
throw in some jokes. I'll sing songs. I'll do whatever it takes to keep the energy up at the
Okay.
event and keep people happy and engaged. So I kind of did that. But Mo came up afterwards and he was like, we've talked for years, and I always thought you were like this super serious person, and like then I hear you sing, and so I had to laugh. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can when I'm really focused and digging in on something, I get very serious and passionate. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, like I do like realize like you have to have
Be
fun and you have
lighthearted.
to have a smile and engage in a positive way on things. So,
Yeah.
um,
Be silly, have
but
fun.
yeah, that was a lot of fun. That's our biggest event
So
by
that, what was
far.
that called? The Innovation Summit or
Yeah, it's
footwear?
the Shoe Sustainability and Innovation Summit.
Shoe sustainability. Yeah.
Yeah, and we added the innovation this year. In years past, it's just basically like a pure play shoe sustainability. And
Yeah. You
our
have a
event,
website called shoesustainability.com.
we shoesustainability.com, and that's where we have a lot of programs and information that, and it's all free resources. Folks, companies can go in and download and incorporate into their operations to do things a little bit better.
Nice.
Um, but we've had this thing over several years where sustainability is a strategy, right? How do we build strategies and goals and tactics to get there? And I felt like we're in a very good spot in the industry where people know a lot more about sustainability. They understand where they play in that space. They've set some strategies, some goals, are moving forward. And then the question then became with the tariffs that came up, because tariffs are a cost sink. I mean, you
Absolutely.
basically it's a tax. You have to pay it. There's
Yeah,
no
and
way
it
around
takes a while for it to show up, right? Like they say,
it. It
6
can
to
for
12 months
consumers.
for the
Yeah, it
impact.
can for consumers, but
Yeah.
as a footwear company, you have to plan into it, and so then
Oh.
you may reduce some of the materials or quality. You may reduce inventory overall and just say,
Mm.
I'm going to take a 20% drop down because I
Okay.
can't, there's risks, there's business risks and cost risks associated with that. But
Oh,
with
those are
all that,
totally different than the consumer too, because I know
right.
like with inflation and everything, they expect some of the impacts
Yeah,
to
that's why it's been
have.
like slowly folded in,
Yeah.
because you can't send 30% on top of a consumer and expect the shoe to sell.
Mm.
It's just not going to happen. And
It's a
so
short term
yeah, so
thing
they've been
for
slowly folding in
negotiations.
5%. It
Yeah.
depends on what the brand is and how they want to approach it at retail. But I would say, I was talking to a shoe retailer, a friend of mine, and he was like, we saw $5 increase, then it went to 10, now it's like 50. So it's a slow
Wow.
fold in, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully, the consumer says, okay, like I understand like where this is going, and hopefully it levels out at some point where there's
Yeah.
no extra that keeps getting added. But it's like, for a pair of $160 running shoes, there's 15 more dollars added in there. And if you
Okay.
see that cost go up from 160 to 175, it's the tariff.
Wow.
There's no other
Yeah.
contributing factor. I mean, it's not a company trying to gouge someone for
Yep.
more money. It's just simply they have to pay that to the US government,
Yeah.
and they got to pass that along if they want to continue to have a
Sure.
successful business where they're making products. So we hit that this year, and so we were like, we should add in the innovation side, because the innovation side around sustainability is like, how do we act more sustainable with a like an ROI against it, right? Like
Hmm.
everything in every department has to be cut back here and there. So how do we continue to lean into sustainability and keep pushing as an industry towards a better future, with more innovative processes so that we can cut costs without cutting our programs around sustainability. And so this year's discussions were really fascinating because it was very tactical around like not just like conceptualizing. This is the problem I have with a lot of sustainability stuff. It's all conceptual, and we're going to do this, and this is our goal. And it's like, yeah, that's great, but how are you going to do it? And this conference really did get down to nuts and bolts of like, making choices and like, you can do this and you can do that, you can do that. And these are all positive steps
Mm,
that may not cost much money at all. Right. And so,
pragmatic
um,
stuff.
it's very pragmatic. And I was really happy with the way it came off because we got a lot of good feedback from attendees who were like, I got like 5 really good things out of this,
Mm,
whether
hmm.
it's connections to people like Mo at Sneaker Impact, where they can
Yeah.
explore more stuff with you guys, or it was just tactically like I can change my material makeup or do something different with my product and make it better and more sustainable at the same time. So
Okay.
there's a there's a lot of movement happening, but cost is a constraint when it comes to choosing materials and then with the tariffs and everything. So it's a honestly, this year's been a chaotic, weird environment for footwear when it comes to business.
Yeah, it feels that
Um,
way. Hopefully things settle down
hopefully
next
things
year.
settle down.
Yeah, we need
Yeah,
it to,
yeah,
for the economy and for also just, yeah, just, so we can stay on the path of, innovation. It's hard to
yep,
innovate, like you said, when there's a lot of cost restrictions.
yep.
So I know you started a bunch of other organizations. Can you highlight a couple of those right now for us?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So there's throughout our work when we engage with different companies, there's always these kind of gaps in our industry that no one has really tackled, and so we get asked a lot to fill those spaces and build community in different ways. So one of those is the Black Footwear Forum that we started 5 or 6 years ago. And our partners at PLC Detroit, Dr. Dwayne Edwards and our CEO Matt Priest got together, and the first BFF basically was a gathering of Black footwear professionals in Washington D.C. To kind of empower the Black footwear community and create better pathways, mentorship, kind of career advice. And that's kind of been built over the last 5 or 6 years, where there's still a national event. I was just there in Detroit a couple of weeks
Wow,
ago.
that's cool.
It's about 1,000 people that showed up, which
My
is
friend Joe
huge.
Robinson's from Detroit. We run
Okay,
313.
there you go.
He's been on the podcast.
But they've
Yeah.
had, they've had like Shaquille O'Neal spoke last
Wow,
year. The CEO of Jordan spoke this year. And there's just a lot of good engagement and conversations around empowering Black professionals in
that's
footwear.
great. Yeah, we see that also
So
with the
that,
Running Industry Diversity Coalition.
yep.
Um,
So that's like one kind of area that
so that
we
one's
work
called
on. The Black Footwear Forum.
Black
Yep,
Footwear Forum.
BFF. Yep. Another one that's happening, and it's happening kind of now or soon in Miami, but we also run the FFCF, and let's see if I can get all these acronyms right. It's the Footwear Charitable Foundation that focuses on raising money for breast cancer research. So
Mm,
many years ago in our industry, there was a fashion brand whose executive was impacted by breast cancer, and so she started Shoes for a Cure. And it used to be with QVC, where they would do a national kind of event and they would sell shoes from all these brands at discount, and they take all the money and put it to breast cancer research. It's kind of evolved into post COVID. There's an event in Miami where in the fashion district, there's a number of retailer boutiques who will donate a portion of their sales to Shoes for a Cure. And then in New York, there's a pop up coming up in October in a couple of weeks where about 300 to 400 footwear employees at different brands and retailers volunteer their time to show up, and they run a store of all these brands that donate, and all the proceeds go towards breast cancer research.
wow.
And
Not
that's
5%,
donated
all of
directly,
it. Wow, that's really powerful
100% of that.
from that
And
pop up.
so
Yeah, that's very
that
cool.
that goes. They've raised something like $60 million for breast cancer research through footwear
Wow.
companies,
Yeah, and this is Breast
donating
Cancer
to.
Month, right? Because we're doing a bunch of the
That's right.
walks right
October
now.
is. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. So there's that, and
very
then
cool.
kind of the last piece of it, and something we launched early this year is called the Footwear Innovation Foundation. It is a 501(c)(3) charity research arm, and so it was created. We've been talking about it for several years, but the challenge with footwear is that because of all the chaos and problems with supply chains and costs and inflation, everybody's doing more with less. So they're expected to do 3 or 4 jobs, whereas in the past maybe one or two. So at the end of the day, they really don't have time to think about what's innovative. They're just trying to put out fires and do their daily job. And so the Footwear Innovation Foundation is trying to look at ways to um, fill kind of the innovation gaps our industry has to make it, address different, whether it's sustainability or whether it's just business operations or like, is there a new retail experience that we can create for consumers
Mm.
to engage them? We that's the primary focus of that, and
Okay.
um, part of that is we launched in June an international competition called the Launchpad Competition. So
Yeah,
one
I
thing that
saw
we,
that Launchpad.
yep. So part of the problem with the industry is it is still very insular in some ways, so it's hard to break into. So we have a lot of folks outside the industry who may have ideas that have no access points. So the Launchpad was that kind of access point where if you had a great idea about footwear, about anything, whether it's a running shoe, or whether it was just a material, or whether you had an idea around like a retail experience, whatever that was, you could submit it for free. And we have a team that went through. We had about 1 million hits globally in terms of like seeing the campaign that we were running. We had thousands of hits on our webpage, and I think we had about 180 entrants.
That's great.
And it was like the entrants were, there's nothing that was too onerous. We wanted to make it easy to apply, but we also
Hmm.
wanted to see who was serious. So they had to like do a presentation deck of 4 things, which is like, who are you? What are you trying to solve for? What's your idea? Give us some information on like where it would fit in the marketplace. So we had all
That's
that,
very cool.
and
I
then
love that Launchpad idea.
yeah, and so we
Helps
had people
young
from
people and
India, UK,
designers,
Italy, yeah, all over the
students.
country have applied for this, and so we narrowed it down to 50, and then we narrowed it down to 15, and then ultimately 8. So what's been happening over the last several weeks are the top 8 from this competition have been going through a boot camp. So we're
Mm,
training them on how to understand footwear, understand marketplace, understand how they take their technology and drop it in, kind of build them up as entrepreneurs and get them ready to
yeah,
engage with the industry.
that's
And then
really
we're going
cool.
to do
Like
an
a mentoring
elevation.
program. Yeah.
It is a huge mentoring program. And what's amazing is even people who have most of these are like startups, or even some people just have an idea on a napkin that we thought, wow, like
Yeah.
that could be a huge game changer. No one's thought about that. So people are in different places. Some people are very polished, and
Hmm.
we still find ways to say, these are your gaps. You got to work on this to help make that stronger.
Mm,
And
hmm.
and then there's other people. There's ideas on the napkins. It's like, gosh, we got to really like lean into this and say like how we help build you up to where there's something that there's some meat on the bones, and there's
Hmm.
some modeling and prototyping or whatever that is. And
Yeah.
um, so that's what the boot camp is to really like build those folks up. And then there'll be an event, and there'll be a top 3 selected, and the top 3 will get prize money and prototyping support. But ultimately, all those 8, and I'll even say this, the top 50, we've been able to take those folks, and if they're talented and they really want to work in footwear or really believe in their idea, we've been strategically putting them with different mentors in the industry.
That's
So this is
amazing.
not a competition. Yeah, it's not a
Yeah. That's
competition where it's
really
like
cool.
the best idea gets the money, right? It
Yeah.
really is like you don't have to have the best idea to get help and support. And this is a way that we're
Just have to
actually,
be curious and
you had to be curious
yeah,
and willing, and like
open to
and
things.
it may be that your idea never pans out, but
Mhm.
there's access to the industry through this
Yeah,
program
that's
now.
true.
And
Gives
a
them
person,
access.
talent and drive matter a lot. And
Hmm.
so, you know, just capturing those folks.
Hmm.
The
Give
the
them the
other side of
support.
it too is
Yeah.
I contacted probably like 200 colleges and universities across the U.S.
Wow.
And it wasn't in traditional design schools. This is like engineering, material science,
Sure.
even like aeronautics, anything and
Wow.
everything. Because aeronautics and automotive are in some ways very similar to footwear in the way that we deal with a lot of different components,
Hmm.
and it's a complex manufacturing process.
Hmm.
So part of it was just putting footwear on the map at these schools to say, footwear as a career is an option for anyone, whether you're an engineer, chemist, IT. We need a lot of IT and data scientists in footwear
Hmm.
nowadays. So some of it is just like making sure that footwear is on the map for some of these colleges, and trying to help kind of steer talent into footwear.
That's
in
really
a
cool.
new strategic way that we haven't really done before. So I'm shocked how much work it has been. I'm also equally shocked how amazing the ideas have been, and like it really has re-energized me in a tough year where sometimes when you talk about tariffs so much, it gets like really you
Mm,
just feel down about things.
yeah.
This has been the one positive. So we've had really great conversations with
Yeah,
footwear
that's so
companies.
cool. Creativity. And Mo always says too, we're always going to universities. Having University of Miami's been in our facility the last couple of months, multiple times. They had their journalism team here a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
Shoot, I mean, the kids, the geography team came here, sustainability departments from different universities. And Mo always says, and I believe this, I'm a high school coach for cross country, that, we need to support and encourage, students so much.
yeah.
Um, so we're
I mean
always
that
traveling to universities and
I,
doing
I
that
just I always
education.
I think that finance and tech and these industries do really well to
Hmm.
attract talent, and footwear
That's true. A lot of people
it's
go into
harder.
finance.
It's
Yeah.
harder for
Yeah.
footwear,
Because of the
right?
money.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
So there's obvious like ways in, but like once you're in footwear, if we can get you in footwear, you'll stay in footwear. I
That's true.
promise. People,
I go to
people
TRE
never
every
leave
year.
Hotel
And
California.
yeah,
Yeah,
you see,
you can check out, but you can never leave. It'll stick with you
yeah,
in
it's a
many
passion.
ways. So yeah.
What got you into footwear?
I it, my
Did you start
I
somewhere else? I mean, because I know you have a degree in
no, I
international relations and
yeah,
economics,
that's kind
foreign
of where it came
policy.
from.
You were a foreign
It's
policy
funny.
head?
Yeah, I did foreign policy. I was one of the foremost experts on counterterrorism when I
Whoa.
worked in Congress. Yeah, so I have a completely different background than
Okay.
most people do. But our CEO and I worked together on Capitol Hill, and he went to he became like the textile czar for the U.S. government, and then when his job ended, he was hired by FDRA, and so I left the Hill and got my master's degree, and I came back, and I was just having conversations with folks about what my next step was. I really
Hmm.
didn't have anything truly nailed down. I knew I didn't want to work for the government because at the time there was a shutdown,
Okay.
just like there is right now.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I really like to get a paycheck and not have to worry about that. Unfortunately, for a lot of people who are dealing with
It's
that
so
now.
sad. Yeah.
Um, but I had a conversation with him, and he was just like, "There's nothing more international than footwear. If you really want to learn about like trade and work in something that's really interesting and multifaceted, like
Hmm.
it would kind of." So as a curious person, I just jumped in. I was like, I don't know anything about footwear. The first week I was on the job, we flew to China.
Wow.
So I was in footwear factories right off the bat, and I would say that's the biggest thing for a lot of folks is coming into footwear. Like you honestly have to understand the manufacturing process to understand the product. So as important as design is and aesthetics are to a consumer to connect with them, equally when you put your foot into it,
Mm.
it's like where the rubber meets the road. It's got to be comfortable. There's got to be return. There's got to be there. It's got to be engineered properly. And the only way to really understand it that holistically is to be in factories or
Yeah.
know the engineering side of the material. I'm not saying you have to be an expert in it, but
No.
you just have to be aware
Sure.
of the complexity of things. And I think that makes people who can understand design and materials and product and consumers,
Yeah.
those people are like superstars. I mean,
Wow.
those people will always have
Well-rounded
jobs.
experts of the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
That's. I
really
mean,
where
shoes don't grow on trees.
that's right. Exactly. Well, rubber does, I guess. I
Rubber,
mean,
yeah, rubber. The original rubber barons and went down to the Amazon, and then they had the issues with the whatever the fungus or the diseases.
yeah.
And they have move them now over to Asia or wherever they're getting it from. But there's also the synthetics and the petroleum industry. There's
Yep.
just so many components, and the cost of oil versus other. Well, this has just been a complete education today on the footwear industry. Do you mind if we talk a little bit about your other passions, Andy, or is there anything else you want to
Oh, I'm
cover?
happy to.
Because I know
I'm
you
an
wanted
open book,
to.
man.
You're very. We want to get you back to work too, because you're helping with this industry so much. And I can't wait to come to one of your conferences or one of your events. And when you down in Miami, please reach out because I'd love to connect with you in person.
That'd be
And
awesome. I'd love to as well.
yeah. So I heard you're a big soccer fan.
I am a big soccer fan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us a
Yes.
little about that because I grew up playing soccer for a good
Oh,
20
did
plus
you?
years. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say seminal moment, I think, for a lot of folks my age, and I think we're of similar age, is the '94 World Cup in the
Yep.
US. And we've got one coming up next year, which is going to be amazing. I'm
Is
trying
that
to get tickets
where's
to
that one going to
see.
be?
It's all over the
Oh,
US,
it's in the
US,
US again.
Canada,
That's right.
Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
So
94 was the last time I was here. That was when I was in high
last
school.
time I was here,
Okay.
yep. And so I think that kind of put it kind of, in many ways, kind of made me look at the world differently, kind of open up the world. I grew up in a small town in the South,
Yeah. Where did you grow
just
up?
outside Charlotte, North Carolina,
Okay.
in a
We love
in a
Charlotte.
town
Shout
called
out to
Monroe.
Charlotte Running Company.
Yeah, yeah.
Harry Chandler
Okay.
is my guy.
So I grew up just outside
Charlotte.
Charlotte, small town. But like it just opened up like a whole world of seeing different cultures, through kind of sport in that way that I hadn't seen before. I mean, most of it was NFL, NBA because Michael Jordan was huge,
Yeah.
and
I know. I was the
so
biggest Michael Jordan fan myself,
right.
being from
But
Madison. Yeah.
all the athletes in the '80s
Yeah.
and '90s were typically the U.S. athletes in U.S. sports. So like seeing that was different. And then when I went to college, I just connected a lot more to kind of international students who were at my school, and we started watching Champions League. And I was like, "What is this?" I wasn't educated. I just didn't know, and so I started having a real passion for watching it and understanding the tactics and the players and all that. And I just became a diehard kind of fan in that way. And I would say, if I'm watching sports, 90% is soccer. I mean, I'll even watch high school soccer on
Wow.
television. Like anything. Like I'm really
That's
into
cool.
it. Um, I've traveled all over Europe to watch it.
Wow.
I've been to the San Siro. I've been to Bernabeu. I've been to a lot of stadiums in the UK. When I was there for a year, I traveled all over.
Wow.
Um, I've seen Champions League matches. Last year, I was at the Euros in Germany. So my wife
Whoa.
was able to let me
That must
fly
have been
over.
really cool.
It was
I've been
so
to
awesome.
Germany for Oktoberfest and the Berlin Marathon, but I would love to see a soccer game,
It was unbelievable, and it was like
or football as they
what
call it,
was
right?
yes, yeah, football exactly.
I've been to
But it
Barcas
was like
Stadium. Yeah.
very communal. Like people
Yeah.
were coming from all over Europe into Germany, and it was just like a big party during the day,
Yeah.
and then at night was the matches, and so it was super awesome because everybody was just so happy.
Uh huh.
It was like a football festival, which
They welcome everyone. It doesn't matter where you're
yeah, it was
from.
great.
You weren't an
I mean, they had
outsider.
like I was in some cities where they had fans coming in who didn't have tickets to the match, and they just wanted to experience watching it in the fan zone or being in the city with all
Hmm.
the other fans. Um, so it was awesome. So yeah,
Cool.
so
Who's your favorite team?
my club is Tottenham Hotspur
Awesome.
in London. Yeah, so when I was in London, I had attended a match previously and really enjoyed the atmosphere and the fans. And then when I moved to London, I um, kind of took them on as my club and went to a
That's
lot of
awesome.
matches. And yeah,
So
so
they're out of London.
last year, last year they finally raised a trophy for the first time. I kind of pick these teams, I guess, that aren't traditionally like. If you look at other
Like
clubs,
Manchester United or Chelsea.
right, who have a lot of money to spend, and
Hmm.
and Tottenham are just kind of like
The underdog.
I don't know. But I appreciate it. I appreciate the
Hmm.
grind and business, and so I kind of
Yeah.
like the club for that reason. Um,
It ties into the footwear industry too, because they wear
yeah,
shoes as well.
exactly, exactly. So
um,
yeah, but yeah, so Tottenham Hotspur is my club. But I watch if I can get away with it, I watch soccer like every night if I could, right? Like,
that's
but I
your
can't.
thing to do to
So
like
yeah,
disconnect and from.
yeah, it's kind of my passion, of seeing that and following things and just
Mhm.
appreciating.
That's
And
cool.
I think too, like culturally, it's fascinating because when you watch teams, and especially next year at the World Cup, when they come play, they all have different formations, they have different tactics and ways of playing, and that
Hmm.
begin is in some ways reflective of their cultures that they have.
Sure.
So,
The Dutch versus the African squads versus the
yep,
South American squads. Yeah, I
yep,
mean, I went to Bogota a couple of years ago, 2 years ago for dental work, and I got to play in a pickup game in the stadium. Not a full stadium, but it was a nice field, very
yeah,
nice, lighted at night with armed
right,
security. And it was just a scrimmage, but I got to experience a little Bogota, Colombia's culture, where I've gone back a couple times. And in Guatemala
yeah,
too, I go there a bunch. So I just love the different, countries and their style.
Yeah,
US has a different style too.
for
Of
sure.
course, it's more,
But I would say, it really does connect you because when when I was working in Congress, that would actually be my connecting point when I was talking to different
mm,
diplomats from other countries
nice.
was soccer. We would talk about soccer as
Yeah.
a conduit to talk about more serious issues about things,
Oh, I
right?
love
And
that
so
icebreaker and just to get
yeah, and I had people coming over and bringing me soccer jerseys from their countries, right?
nice.
Like I kind of got known as the guy who was like the American fanatic for football in some
Yeah,
ways, so which I'm fine with. I appreciate it. I got some nice kits in my house, so
nice.
yeah.
Um, so I have just a couple quick questions. They're kind of all like little potpourri questions. What challenges do you think made you who you are today, or what was like one of the biggest challenges you think in your life? Was there a big moment where you had to go a certain direction? Was it getting, starting a family? Was it a different in college where
Starting a family is always having
yeah, we
kids. I
haven't had
have
a chance.
three
You got
kids.
kids, your
I
dad,
have 3 kids, it's always a challenge.
two kids.
Having kids is interesting because it challenges my belief that I'm a good communicator.
Mm-hmm.
Because having to boil down things to a
Sure.
9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 2-year-old is fundamentally different. So it
Well, you have
challenges my.
three kids?
I have 3 kids,
Wow.
so
Boys
yeah,
and
so
girls?
it's all girls,
All
all
girls.
3
Wow.
girls.
So
Yeah,
Mo has three girls as well, and then one
yeah,
boy. So you and Mo have a
yeah,
lot of girls.
yeah.
That's awesome.
So
I'm from
that's
a family
that.
of all boys, so
Okay,
it works
yeah.
one way or the other usually.
Yeah. So that's always is I think being a parent is the best and largest challenge that I have to try to lean into. But I would
Hmm.
say when I was coming out of college, I wanted to be in banking, honestly.
Okay.
And it just didn't work out and I got into politics and I couldn't be happier, but a lot of it was being brave enough to move up to Washington D.C.
Mm,
when I was from Chip. I grew up in a small town. I went to an even my university or my college was even in a smaller town than I grew up in. So
hmm.
moving to DC was a big challenge for
Yeah.
me, just personally being able to be like, can I do this work?
It's like a Shark Tank.
Yeah. And I committed myself to like really just grind, just show up early, stay
Yeah.
late, learn as much as I could, be
Wow.
curious, be positive.
Hmm.
Um, and that kind of led to a lot of success. Whereas, people who went to like a Harvard or a Yale or whatever that I would engage with on the Hill at the same time just weren't willing to put the same work in. So
Yeah.
super smart people, but like if you want to separate yourself in anything in life, you've got to work at it. And so
Hmm.
I just was willing to put more work in than other people to get where I'm at.
Wow. Yeah. So work ethic is so key.
Yeah.
Um, what is your favorite motto or quote to inspire people and live by?
I like quotes a lot. I love when I get to an event and hear somebody quote something, and then I can like
Hmm.
stick it in my brain and think about it. And I, in many ways, I like all the transcendentalist stuff from Emerson and Thoreau, and I like the Daily Stoic. I like reading about that, and it's all like for me, it's very anything that's practical. It's like how can you live your life more simply?
Sure.
Stop thinking so much about all this other stuff or missing out or whatever. It's like, what can you control? Can you live more simply? And then all that, you have some kind of happiness to it. So I wouldn't say there's like one quote, but my philosophy is basically like it drills down to just simplicity
I
of
love that.
life.
Yeah.
Like
Simplicity is so key in life.
the more, yeah, like and we have a joke here on the staff because our CEO Matt Priest, like he loves buying footwear, and I don't buy that much shoes. Like it's kind of an ironic thing, but
Mhm.
like I just think so much in terms of just being simplistic in my choices, decisions, like um,
Yeah.
focusing where I try to focus my time where I think it's the most valuable. So my kids, my family, and then these kind of passion projects in the footwear
That's
space where I
great.
really try to lean into.
It's awesome. So would you like to do a short singing or song for us to close it out? And then, I mean, if you'd like to
I
do a
don't think so,
cameo,
man. I'm gonna
do you
take
have
a
anything
pass.
prepared? Any
Let
favorite
me tell you, you got to
karaoke
be at.
jams? Like, I don't know. I
You,
won't make you do Madonna, but
you have to be at the events to get it. You got to
oh,
be in
okay. All
person.
right, then that's an
So I
incentive. I
can't give
love
it
it.
all away, but you got to be at
Maybe
the
we can
events.
find you on YouTube and I can throw something in.
Well, if you listen to our podcast every now and again, there'll be some
Yeah.
quirky
Okay,
thing that
let's
I'll
talk about the
share.
podcast real quick before I let you go. So you're at 500 episodes because I'm at about 47. So
Yeah. We just
we talked a little off air about this, but tell people what it's like in the podcasting world.
Yeah, it's 500. I'm shocked that we hit 500. Honestly, when we started it, we had this conversation of what success in a podcast would look like, right? Like, then you start throwing out like create. You're like, well, if we got 1,000 people to listen, if you got 10,000 people, like, and then we kind of boiled it back down. It's like, what if there were just 10 people that listened that were really important people that could
Mm.
make decisions
Hmm.
for our industry or for consumers that would change things like that in and of itself. So it became like more of a purpose driven mission than just the metrics of say
Yeah.
500 episodes is great, but like I'm more proud of the fact that every episode there's 2 or 3 tidbits that is shared that people can apply to their life or their business. And so I think when we started out, like we didn't really know how to have conversations and talk about topics and things like that. And I think we've kind of eventually found our way in that, and we've kind of become integral. And we've got a lot of great, to my, numbers have been great, and they keep growing and increasing. But we have CEOs of major companies. Like we not too long ago, we interviewed the CEO of Brooks Running, and he was
Wow.
like, "I'm a loyal listener," and it's like
Wow.
that blows me away, right?
Yeah.
Like, but he's like, "I love the episodes because I learned something. It's
Hmm.
fun. It's
Wow.
so
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 rewarding
it
when you hear that from people, even if
yeah
it's just
so
it doesn't matter who it is, either if it's a CEO or when people, yeah, we're small, but it's just
a lot of
every person
people
counts.
Yeah, we were talking. I think it was Ronnie Wright, who was a legendary Nike designer. We did an interview with him, and then his podcast dropped. And at the same time, like a week later, he was at Virginia Tech doing some work with students, and the students were coming up saying, "I listened to you on the podcast." So, like, even at the student level, entrepreneur, startup, those folks are listening in as well. And so, I think that's for me is the most interesting thing. From a behind the scenes perspective, I try really hard not to script too much out.
Okay.
And it makes it harder in some ways because you got to be really on point in these conversations to pull things out of people or find the nuggets and the gems. But I just feel like authenticity matters so much more than the soundbite.
That's so true.
And so um, and understanding how people think and reason, how they work through problems. But we focus a lot on our show around like culture, leadership, like ethos, things like that drive companies, not just like, well, why'd you choose purple over orange, right?
Yeah.
So it was like kind of um, kind of an evergreen approach in some ways of how we approach it. And the interesting thing after 500 episodes is that you can, and we can talk about running shoes, but like every company makes running shoes differently and in different places and in different ways for different reasons for different and so you could line up 100 companies and they would have 100 different ways of operating.
Hmm.
And I think that's just so fascinating, and they can
Sure.
all learn from each other in certain ways, but there's a core belief, value system, or ethos that each company has that
That's
drives
right.
them, and they all engage with their consumers differently. But like they're the successful people are hyper focused on the individual. And so yeah, so I think 500,
So interesting how they're focused on the individual, yet it applies to a wide segment
yeah,
because
yeah.
there's a lot of shared traits, but also everyone is individually very unique.
Well, that's the hard part now is going forward is in this
But
fractured media world where
yep.
podcasting now is kind of, I mean, I would say like, if we think about
It's
our
ubiquitous.
society,
It's everywhere.
yeah. So cable news used to be where everybody
Oh,
got,
that's right.
well,
Yeah, the media was only
start in
on
the
TV.
50s, right? It's like Time Magazine,
Yeah.
Newsweek, whatever the publications were, everybody's reading the same heady news, high minded news about, society or whatever it was, the economy, whatever. And then it started fracturing, and then we had like cable news, and cable news now is kind of fractured into these kind of live podcasts, whether it's Joe Rogan or any of these
Yeah.
guys, right?
No,
You have
but
these,
even like not even considering Joe Rogan, there's people that are much lower on the totem pole than him in the
right?
sense of the numbers, and they're
Yep.
still crushing the TV numbers.
Yeah,
Like they're
exactly.
crushing CNN or Fox. I don't
Right.
want to say any names because I don't want to get in trouble. But some of these shows, even online or
Yeah.
the late night shows, are seeing that like the podcasting world is where a lot of people are going for, the conversation. It's not necessarily, you have to always, it's like there's experts and then there's people just
Right.
casual, so there's just a
I
whole
think that
range of everything. The whole gamut's on podcasting.
everybody's finding these little niches,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And that's the growing challenge I think that a lot of shoe companies have
Yeah.
is they try to create this model of what the ideal consumer is and then sell into a mass category. Whereas now they're having to say, okay, we've got 8 ideal consumers, and then how do we segment our offerings into more
Hmm.
micro targeted categories? So instead of just one shoe for our target audience,
Yeah.
and hopefully it connects with the people, like we actually have to be more focused and segmented than ever, and more thoughtful than ever about the fact that we have 8 different ideal customers instead of one, and that makes
Mm.
business really difficult. But if you can do it that way and you're successful at it, your business will grow. I mean,
Yeah.
so and I think that's some of the problems we've seen with big companies in the industry have kind of went away from that and
Yeah.
now coming back to it. Um, and it's an interesting industry for sure. And being able to have a podcast means that we get 30 or 45 minutes, depending on how long we go with
Yeah.
an executive, just to talk to them and kind of break bread digitally and have conversations. And I think it's pretty cool. I like where we're at with it in terms of being able to spend time with someone and add value and just have like really good conversation where I walk away learning, I don't know, maybe more than not my audience does in some ways,
Mm.
selfishly. So if I do it right.
That's awesome. Well, you got a new fan here, the Shoe In Show.
Yep, shoe and show. That's
Shoe In
it. Yep.
Show. So that's everywhere, I'm sure, on YouTube, Spotify.
Yeah,
You got, well, you
everywhere
were
you
telling
can
me off
download
camera
audio.
how the evolution of the production has come, and I can identify with that because it's, you can't just go into it thinking I'm gonna just, figure it all out within 1 week. It takes years,
Yeah. We've
years.
had a lot of different
I'm
segments.
in
We
year
only did
two.
audio.
Yeah, it's you're in year
Yeah.
15. You were telling me
I think it's, yeah, 10
10.
years, 50, yeah, somewhere in there around
Wow,
10, maybe 9 or 10.
that's incredible. But that's consistency.
It is hard because we do try, like we were fooling around with doing one a month, and
It's like a marathon, ultra.
our folks, yeah, the kind of the experts that work with us are like, you got to do it every week.
Okay,
If you want to build an
one
audience,
a
you got to do
week.
it every week, right? And
Yeah.
like, it doesn't mean that everybody's going to listen every week, but it's
Hmm.
the consistency of putting out something that's
Yep. That's what I got to
useful.
work on is I do pretty much everything for the podcast. I don't want to say that lightly, but I do. And I need
Yeah,
some help
that's
with
a lot.
editing because sometimes when I'm doing the conversation and, just for a little bit of the inside baseball talk, between you and I is, I could use some help in the editing because I get a little burned out from, I don't
Well, that's
always
the
want to
hardest
listen to
part.
myself again
Yeah.
and choose all the
No,
best
trust me. I don't
or,
really re-listen to the episodes once they're
I
out.
listen to them. I listen to them while I'm driving sometimes just to make sure the quality. I mean, I always listen to them before, and chunks of them, but,
Mhm.
and we try to do zero editing in terms of removing any type of filler words. We just edit for overlays, which we're going to,
I think that's a good thing because like,
yeah, that was Mo's mandate. And actually I identified it with the two. He said, Joe Rogan doesn't edit. I was like, you're right.
yeah, the authenticity matters a lot.
Yeah.
And we fooled around with doing some edits and things like that, but I would rather just have a taped conversation.
Yep.
And like,
Absolutely.
obviously, unless somebody really screws up
Yeah.
something like around like the dates or the data or something,
Sure.
like,
Or said something they couldn't say under an NDA and you got to
yeah,
take it
so
out.
yeah, we out of 500 episodes, we probably edited like 20.
Yeah.
Where we're just like, yeah, we get it. Like, but otherwise, like somebody might come and be like, well, I didn't quite say it the way I wanted to. And be like, who cares,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's a conversation. Like,
Yeah.
you're not going to even say it right over lunch with your best friend, right?
That's
It's
true.
just human nature.
Yep.
So just roll with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of works out that way. But I appreciate the fact that, I appreciate what you guys are doing and the fact that you guys are driving content too,
Thank
right?
you.
Like, we
Yeah.
need more
Absolutely.
conversations about footwear and then
Yeah.
end of life for sure. Anything to educate and activate people, I think, is really important. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you guys having me on and letting
Yeah.
me kind of
It's so
share a
fun to
bit.
meet so many people, whether it's through Mo or through other people in the company or just in my life. I was just in Chicago and at the expo, I met several people I'm going to interview coming up from all over the world. So,
Yeah.
it's just really interesting. And you've been our top footwear expert for sure. So I hope people find a
Well,
lot of value in
keep
this
working at it.
episode.
The more you do it, the more experts above me you'll get for
Well,
sure.
maybe.
100%.
I'm really curious about the FDRA. Tell us again one more time what it stands for.
Footwear Distributors and Retailers of America. So it is a association of footwear brands, footwear retailers. We have factories as members. We have material suppliers. So anyone in the footwear ecosystem can join FDRA as a member, and we take membership dues
Okay.
and apply it towards fighting tariffs or building programs. So,
Yeah.
in terms of circularity, all the money is circular. It goes back into something
Mm-hmm.
to help the footwear industry grow and strengthen itself to produce better products or ship it more effectively or be more sustainable. Any of
Yeah.
those things, kind of striving towards a better industry.
Very cool. So I'm going to share a bunch of links for people to learn more about the Footwear Distribution Retailers of America
Yep.
and the Footwear Innovation Foundation and shoesustainability.com and your Launchpad so people can continue to submit ideas and your podcast, of course. So we're just thank you so much, Andy, for coming on today. New friend. I love your energy. I love your outlook and everything about your message today was very, very on point with what Sneaker Impact aligns with. So thank you for,
Yeah.
we'd love to have you on in the future and hopefully we'll see you in
Absolutely.
Miami.
I'd love to.
Reach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happy to come back anytime. Let me know.
Awesome. Any last thoughts for our community?
No, I just think be thoughtful about what you're purchasing. Be thoughtful about what you do with your shoes. Be thoughtful that there are people, you may imagine that your footwear is uncomfortable and not to your standard, but there are a lot of people in poverty around the world who would beg to differ. And so work with Sneaker Impact and other folks. Anyone, any way we can keep sneakers out of a landfill is what we should be focused on. So extending life. Eventually, we'll get to the grinding and developing infrastructure around that. But
Yeah,
for our industry, it's just step by step. Progress is being made, but future progress requires on us as consumers to be thoughtful.
that's great. I love that thoughtfulness, mindfulness, and innovation. Thank you so much for being on today, Andy.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.